So, and if it ain't enough, we'll pass it again, all right? But my name's Chad Moore. I'm one of the associate pastors here at Mars Hill. On behalf of our pastor and our church staff, we welcome you to Mars Hill today. Thank you for being here, and it's our honor to host you. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you need restroom facilities, they are out this door to the left. If all of you try to go there, it will be just cluttered like registration. So we've got some more down this hallway. There's some signs. You can follow those, and if we can help you in any way, please let us know. Today at lunchtime, we are providing a meal for you. The other folks aren't getting that, but you're getting it today, all right? And down in our gymnasium, we've got barbecue. Rick's Barbecue's catering that today, and so please stay and eat. I don't have to deal with all the food that's left over, all right? And so we've got dinner for you today. And again, we welcome you. If we can do anything to help you while you're here today, please let us know, and we hope you have a great day, all right? Can I pray for you as you begin today? Father, I pray that you would bless this group. I pray that you would help them today. I pray that you would be with the speakers. I pray that you would use them today to have an impactful time upon the lives of each man and woman who sits in this place. Father, I pray that this day, that God, it would be an encouraging day. I pray it would be a challenging day. I pray it would be a day of refreshing. That, Father, as they begin a school year of impacting kids' lives, Father, my kids' lives, but kids all in this community, I pray today that they would see that, God, you have gifted them and you have called them to this place where they sit today, and that, God, you're going to use them in mighty ways this school year. So I pray this day you'd bless them. I pray it'd be a day of encouragement for them, a day of refreshing. Father, thank you for loving us. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Chad. Welcome back. It doesn't really seem that summer should be over yet, but we're here, so obviously it's time for school to start back. I hope all of you have had a restful summer. I hope you've been able to enjoy activities with your family and friends that you all like to do together. Some of you may be sitting there asking, why are we here today? We don't typically do this type of in-service. The reason that you all are here today is the AWARE program is a component of one of Mr. McDaniel's buckets in our district strategic plan. And we felt like in order for us to be able to carry out that goal for this year, we needed to prepare you with the information that you needed to help us move forward. And so our speakers today are going to provide us with the information that we need in order to be able to do that. We've spent years educating the instructional part of our children, but we haven't stepped back maybe and looked at the whole child. And looking at the whole child is what we really need to do in order to be able to reach those children. So the sessions that we have aligned today, they're going to share information with us that's going to help us be able to reach back in ourselves and do what's best for the kids, because really that's who we're here for. Okay? April, do you have anything before I recognize our speaker? Moving forward into this school year, let's just remember that we want to truly make our students our focus. I'm now going to introduce our speaker. Known as the Connection Coach, Tara Brown is an award-winning educator, author, and international speaker whose 32 years of professional journey has taken her from rural Florida to gain territory in California and to one of the largest high schools in Tennessee with over 43 counties represented. Her international engagements have included Dubai and Peru, training both educators and students while there. Tara believes strongly in the power of connections and that a major key to reaching kids is the ability to build positive relationships. Whether here or abroad, Tara's passion and humor continues to drive her work to better equip adults with the ability to connect with youth in order to unleash their true potential. She is committed to helping strengthen organizations one connection at a time. Buckle up, because you are about to be terrorized.
All right. So, we're up in the house of the Lord. So y'all got to be truthing with me, all right? So if at any point y'all want to bust out with an amen or a hallelujah, just let it rip. Is that a deal? And the pastor said something about passing a collection plate. He was kidding. I'm serious. I'm going to get me some gas money before I get out of here. So just so y'all know that. So, okay, as far as truthing, tell me the truth. How many of y'all are sitting there and your body is in shock and you're trying to figure out where the summer went? Come on. Can I hear an amen? Yeah. I'm here for you. I feel your pain. I remember those days where we're going back and you're sitting there going, wait, I thought we were just leaving the building. How is it possible that we got to go back? I see some head nods, and I'm just letting you know that I'm with you. I feel your pain, but the bottom line is the cheerings are coming. And we got to make sure that we're in the right frame of mind for the cheerings, do we not? So, what I'm going to talk about today really has to do with making sure that we're clear on, are we serving food to kids, or are we serving kids food? Are we driving kids to school, or are we driving a bus with kids on it? Because ultimately the bottom line is, y'all are such an unbelievable integral part of how those kids perform in the classroom, even though you might not think of the connection. What I want you to leave here today knowing is that every interaction that you have with a child is going to have an impact on how that child shows up in the classroom, how that child feels about the school as a whole, how that child feels as far as their ability to do the work that's being asked of them. I have worked in schools where the support staff are like the redheaded stepchildren of the family. And I want to tell you from the bottom of my big old size 11s, I am so appreciative of what you do on a daily basis, because I have seen the miracles that support staff can play in the lives of our kids. I have seen support staff be able to connect with kids that no one else on campus can connect with. I have seen support staff be the fiber and the foundation and the culture of the school that allowed for those kids to walk in the building and feel seen and heard and validated. So I want y'all to know beyond a doubt that there are people in this district that cherish and honor what you do, and they know the important roles that you play, whether you're serving green beans, whether you're driving a bus, whether you're keeping the schools clean, whether you're working with kids individually, whether you're out there with your Glock and your badge and you're doing your SRO thing, whatever it is, I want y'all to know how valued you are, and the leadership of this district appreciates your work on a daily basis. So I just wanted to say that at the get-go. I'm going to ask if I may just throw a little Tupac at you. Y'all know Tupac? The rapper? Some of y'all are looking at me with blank faces, have no idea. I promise I won't break out into rap, but I'm going to share part of the poem that became a rap when Tupac, one of the famous rappers in the world years ago, and he said, "You would not ask a rose that grew through the concrete why it had damaged petals. On the contrary, you would relish in its tenacity, and you would love its will to seek the sun." When you think about the cheerings that are going to be coming onto your campus, do you have damaged petals that you're going to be dealing with? Do you have kids that are fighting a really rough life out there that are going to be coming to you having struggled in their own world? Do you have kids like that? Would you say you have a lot of kids like that? I started teaching in 1985, and I tell you what, I have not seen a time where we have more kids that need more love and more caring adults than right now. And so part of what I want you to go into this year thinking is, how can I be that water for those damaged petals? How can I show up in a way and interact with them so that I am the water that's going to feed those damaged petals and help them continue to fight through the concrete of their life? I tell you what, I grew up, I was the youngest of 4 kids, and my oldest sister was a damaged petal. My oldest sister was special needs. And she passed last year. But I tell you what, till the very last month that she was on this earth, if we started talking about teachers and other adults and other support staff in her life as she went through school that touched her life, she could recall just like that the people in her life, and some of them were the support staff. I remember Miss Pearl, our bus driver, and Miss Pearl was one of those people for Melinda that had Melinda's back when she was on the bus and made sure that Melinda was taken care of and always had a smile for her. And Miss Rom had her 3 years in high school, and Melinda always talked about Miss Rom, and she would light up like a Christmas tree talking about how nice Miss Rom was and how she loved Miss Rom, and she knew Miss Rom loved her. And so I don't want y'all to ever doubt that the small interactions, the small deposits that you put into the emotional bank account of our kids in this county are going to have a long-term ripple effect. And I know that you're being asked to give a lot and do a lot, and you have a lot of responsibilities in a day-to-day basis. But your biggest responsibility, and who I want you focused on beyond a doubt, are the kids. And if we deal with the kids first, the content and the other responsibilities are going to take care of themselves. I want to share this quote with you. I collaborated with Melody McCarty. She didn't know I did, but I did. Melody McCarty says the kids in our classroom and our relationship with them are significantly more important than the subject matter that we teach. And I went ahead on and added, or Common Core, or RTI, or benchmarks, or evaluations, or test scores, or AYP, or... We've had a huge shift in this country, and we've got the focus where it doesn't need to be. And so when I go in and talk to certificated personnel and the principals and the teachers, I just want to smack them upside their weave. I just want to smack them because they get all worried about the content. And some of y'all are in the classrooms and you see some of those teachers, do you not? Can I get an amen? Amen. Don't be afraid to bust out with it now, because we're up in the house of the Lord, and we're about truthing up in here. And I know some of y'all see some of those uptight teachers and some of those uptight administrators who have the focus on something that has nothing to do with the cheerings, am I right? And so sometimes y'all are the ones who's got to counterbalance that craziness until I can get to them and shake the snot out of them. So I've got to know going into this school year that y'all are going to be out there slinging dopamine on these kids. I've got to know that y'all are going to be walking into the school buildings where you see the uptight principal and you see the uptight teachers and you see the ones that are so focused on the content and the evaluations and the test scores that they're forgetting about the fact that we're teaching cheerings. We are teaching cheerings. Connections before content. I preach it from the mountaintop every time I go into schools. We've got to remember while we're there. And for y'all, I want you going into this school year, and I want you thinking, what is the leadership footprint that I am putting on our school, and more importantly, on the hearts and the minds and the souls of our kids? What is my leadership? Well, I'm just no, I don't care what your title is. You might be the only one in that entire school that has the ability to connect with that particular child. You. I don't care what your title is. You might be the only one. And we've got kids in this district that desperately need to connect with caring adults. So I'm going to ask you as you go into this school year, am I right in the head? Have I got my mind right? Because Zig Ziglar says some of us need a checkup from the neck up, okay? And if you're sitting there dreading the fact that the cheerings are coming and your summer was short and you got stuff going on in your own life, when are the kids coming? Friday, today? You got 3 days to fix it, okay? You got 3 days to fix it. Whatever's going on in your life, you got 3 days, 72 hours, chip and chop. Because kids can't wait for us to get our stuff together. Kids can't wait. We got to make sure we show up in the right frame of mind to give those kids what they need and to be the water to sustain them. Would you agree that most kids, there's a story behind the story? Like how they show up, that's not quite right. Y'all want to hear a story that happened to me when I was a veteran teacher? This happened when I was a veteran. I always say it's a good thing it happened when I was a veteran, or I might not have ever gotten to be a veteran. Because this was a challenging moment for me trying to figure out how to put my leadership footprint on this situation. Okay, you ready? It was the first day of school, the first 20 minutes of the first period of this particular year, okay? I had done my song and dance. I had gotten my kids sufficiently excited and bewildered and perplexed, and they were trying to figure out if this white woman was crazy or what. I liked them like that. I wanted them a little off balance. And I had all my kids working on their packet, okay? So I'm standing over here by one of my kids, helping him with his packet, and all of a sudden, the door flings open. I don't mean the door open. I mean the door flung open. And into the doorway walked this very attractive, I was guessing, about a 16-year-old girl. And there she stood. I think she was waiting for the angels to start singing and the light from heaven to shine upon her head. When she realized that wasn't going to happen, I thought she was going to come give me her late slip and give me her schedule and make sure that she was in the right place, but that would have messed up her entrance. So she looked around my classroom and she found an empty desk and she sashayed her little hiney over and she plopped down. So my kids are kind of looking around. It's like, okay. So they go back to doing what they're doing. And I look at her and I look at my door and my door is wide open. And so I said, darling, would you mind to close my door, please? And of course she didn't mind because she got to walk in front of everybody again. So she got up and she did her thing and shut my door very nicely and went and plopped back down. So I thought, well, I've got to deal with her in a minute, figure out who she is and if she's in the right place, but I'll deal with her in a minute. So I'm finishing up with my kid that I'm working with, but I turned periphery so I could see her. And her hand went up. I saw her hand go up and I thought, she can wait. But alas, she could not. Because about 3 seconds after her hand went up, I heard, let me be real clear. I've never been snapped at by a child before. All right? In case any of you are wondering, that's a common occurrence up in my room. Look, what y'all did? My kids did too. I hear gasps everywhere. The pencils and pens screech to a halt. Their eyes shoot over at her, over at me, over at her, and I start seeing the thought bubbles pop up. And this kid over here is like, oh, Lord, wait till I get to second period and tell them what I just witnessed up in here. And this one over here is like, oh, God, I'm glad I got her on time. This is going to be good. And this one over here is like, I'm going to get my cell phone out and get this on YouTube before lunchtime. I haven't moved yet. Why? Because I want to tell you why. I have a lot of personalities running around in my head, okay? I'm a Gemini. I got a lot of personalities running around in my head. All of them, my mom would be proud of except one. I call her my girl on the bench. Let me know if you have this personality up in your head or if it's just me and I need to get meds. My girl on the bench sits on my bench of life, and she just has a running commentary on what's going on around her. She just sits there and she could be funny with her comments, or she could be snarky or irritable or whatever, but she just rambles a lot, everything going on. Anybody have that personality but me? Okay, I feel better. I see a couple hands and some head nods. I had one woman tell me, I got two girls on my bench. So I felt a whole lot better. Okay? As long as my girl sits on the bench, nothing comes out of my mouth. Okay? It's just me and her. But let me tell you something. There are times where my girl has a situation that she feels as though she needs to deal with. And this was one of those situations because in my head, when that child snapped at me, I heard my girl on the bench scream in my head, oh, no, she didn't. And I knew I had about 2 seconds to get her buckled up on the bench or it was all going to go off the rails and I was going to be standing like this and like this on the evening news heading to the big house. I still haven't moved. I heard her scream. I know I have to get my girl under control. I started praying. I started praying fervently in my head. I was praying to the baby Jesus, to Allah, to Buddha. I might have put out a prayer to Oprah. I don't know. I was desperate. I had a moment of clarity come to me. And I had 2 thoughts pop into my head. One, There is usually a story behind the story, and you need to figure out what that is. And the second thing was, you are about to put your leadership footprint on the hearts and the souls and the minds of these kids for the next 180 days. Not only this class, but your other 5 classes whom you haven't even met yet. You better get this right. And I was able to gather myself, and I was able to keep my girl on the bench. Nothing came out of my mouth. And I raised up calmly, and I looked at her and I said, don't do that. And I went back to working with this kid. Now, you know my button pushers in the room were like, I know they were very confused / disappointed at that response. Okay, cell phone, YouTube, back in the pocket. All right? But what I wanted to say to them was, I'm going to model for you the behavior that we are all going to aspire to this year. I'm going to treat you with dignity and respect at all times. And I got to know the story behind the story. And that girl was from Ghana. And she had only been in the United States for less than 8 months. And had she stayed in Ghana, her father was the next in line to be the ruler of this small little village that she had come from, which would have made her the what? The princess. And so that behavior was perfectly normal to her. I never said anything more to her about that situation. We just went on. And we had a fabulous year. But it was because I was at the point in my maturity that I was able to gather myself and not let that instinct that we all have to go take me on a road that wasn't going to serve me or her, most importantly. And so that's one of the things I want to ask you is, how are you doing making sure that those moments in time you leave feeling good about how did I serve that child? Because it's about them, yeah? It's about them. We're serving these kids every day when we walk on that campus. We're serving them. And I want you to think about leading with your heart. I want to share a story of a really, really powerful leader whose leadership footprint was pretty darn impressive. Back in the 80s, Scandinavian Airlines was pitiful. Pitiful. They were bottom. They were bottom in some really important categories. They were bottom in service, they were bottom in dependability, and they were bottom in profits. They were number last at the bottom. And they brought Jan in to see if he could fix it quickly. And so what Jan did is he started looking at the research. He not only looked at the research of his company, he looked at the research that we know about human interaction. And here's one of the things that he figured out really quickly, is that humans are hardwired to connect. And when he started looking at the company, he realized his employees weren't connecting with each other. His employees weren't connecting with the leadership of the company. And his employees certainly weren't connecting with the customers who were flying on the Scandinavian airline at all. And he started looking at the data because you know leaders love them some data. And he also researched and found out and figured out what he'd known for a long time that his people didn't understand, and that is that you cannot get people to move and change their behavior unless you get them here. When you touch them here, when you move them with emotion, that's what causes human beings to change. He had a whole entire mass of customers. He had to figure out how do we change how they feel about Scandinavian Airlines because they don't feel very good right now. We're last. And so what he did is when he was looking at the research, he said, you know what, Scandinavian Airline employees, we had 10 million customers last year, and they had 5 encounters with somebody that has a Scandinavian uniform on. It might have been the baggage person, it might have been the front desk person, it might have been the stewardess, whoever it was. They had 5 encounters during those periods of time where they were interacting with our airline. And those encounters lasted about 15 seconds. And what this great leader did when he was changing the vision of the company said, guess what? That's a total of 50 million chances to either get it right or get it wrong. And we've been getting it wrong a lot. And we're going to change that. We're going to make those people who decide to fly our airlines feel valued, feel seen and heard and important. We're going to serve them like they've never been served before. And he started having everybody in that organization understand those 15 seconds, we're going to start calling the moments of truth. Those 15 seconds, we're going to make sure that regardless of what our title is in the company, we are loving up every second of those 15 seconds with every single one of those customers. And when he started putting that footprint on the organization, and when he started setting the vision and the intention that says, you either are signing up for this and you understand the value of this, or you need to GO, and he got rid of some folks, but the people that were there understood we can't change behavior until we touch them here. We can't change behavior until we have them feel better about the experience. And they went from bottom to top in 12 months. They went from last to first in 12 months. So I'm going to ask you, what could y'all do as a district if every single person in this room said, you know what? We got a lot of moments of truth during our school day when we're with those kids. I got moments of truth when that child, when I open that bus door and those kids walk up those 3 steps. That's a moment of truth. How have I been doing with those moments of truth? That moment of truth right there when they're walking on my bus, I can sling some dopamine on them. I can flash the pearlies. I can help them feel good because guess what? I don't know what has happened since they left school yesterday, but y'all know as well as I know, a lot of times it's not good. And so what if when they're out there running from lions in their life, they get on your school bus and all of a sudden you go, no, I'm going to take care of that moment of truth. Bam! I'm going to sling dopamine all over that child. I told you about Miss Pearl. Miss Pearl was a heavy woman. Okay? I remember she just took up a lot of space. And I remember she used to wear sleeveless shirts. And she had big old bat wings. And I remember I used to watch her open and close those doors. And I remember just being as a kid just fascinated with her little underarms just slinging. And it just used to make my day. She had no idea I enjoyed that more than the bus ride. I just love I was just fascinated by every time she'd open that door, whoa, 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 under here. It was great. It was great entertainment for me. Okay? But on top of everything else, Miss Pearl was nice. She was just nice. She was just a really happy woman. And I always felt good other than getting to watch the Batwings. I was just always happy because she was a nice lady. Think of all the kids that come through your lunch line, cafeteria workers. I had kids that were too prideful to fill out a free and reduced lunch form. I was working at a school at one point that had 2,700 kids in a building built for 1,900 kids. We had 30 portables all over the back of the property. They started cooking lunch in the 9s because we had 5 lunch for all the kids we had. I knew that my kids who were smelling the food at 9 o'clock being cooked for lunch weren't going to eat lunch because some of them were too prideful to let anybody know they needed a free lunch. When we have the heart of a servant leader, when we have the ability to say, you know what, that kid's having a rough time, I'm just going to make sure that when they interact with me, I make it a little bit better. That's what the moments of truth are. And that's where the miracles happen. I'm telling you what, I about cried when I saw this picture. That's not on that man's job description. What that is a man that understands that he can take a few seconds out of his day, sling some dopamine on those 2 little precious babies, and guess what's happened neurologically? Guess what's happened biologically? They're feeling safer emotionally, and until a child feels emotionally safe, they can't make their brain work. And so there's 2 little babies are having an interaction with a caring adult who's making them smile. He's slinging dopamine. That's a beautiful example of taking care of the moments of truth. And that's what we're talking about. Us just setting the intention that says, you know what? We're going to just tear it up at the moments of truth every chance I get with a kid. Whatever it is, whatever I'm doing, whatever my job title is, we're going to take care of it. Here's the research. One of the most important aspects of relationships is how connected they feel. And that's why I said y'all are so unbelievably important. Because sometimes y'all are the front line defense. Bus drivers, y'all are going to be picking up kids. You're the first person to see those kids from the summertime. If they're riding your bus, you might be the first face they see of the school. When we're talking about how they feel walking in the building, a lot of times the TAs or the educational assistants have a chance to have more normal conversations with them that don't have anything about education. I can just talk to them about their summer. Those moments of truth are important. When you look at this, I tell you what, I have worked in schools with some cranky support staff. Cranky! Anybody ever worked in a school with a cranky front desk secretary? If she's sitting next to you, just go ahead and bust out with an amen anyway. Just don't look to the left or right. Just keep your eyes right there on me. Amen, sister. Amen. Yeah. I don't know why we do that. What other organization on the planet would allow for a cranky person at the front desk to keep her job? What do we say? Oh, that's just Miss So-and-so. She's been here 27 years. Yes. Surely we can all band together and hang on for another 3. Okay? Let's just support each other, okay? We can work through this. I know we can. If you get weak one day, I'll hold you up, okay? Oh, we can't fire her. She's the second cousin of my brother's sister. Oh, yes. We have potlucks with them on Sunday afternoon, the 3rd Sunday of every month. We have the potluck. She's going to be there. We can't fire her. In the South, what do? We pick up the rug, we put it back down. Am I lying or am I truthing? Look, I grew up in rural Florida. I say Florida people think the beach. Forget that. There was no water around me. Okay? There was cow pastures. I grew up in a town, rednecks everywhere. I love my redneck friends. I did. Jacked up pickup truck, rebel flags, gun racks, bumper sticker that says, "Friends don't let friends drive Chevys." Okay? It was hardcore redneck up in there. All right? Just like here, some of y'all never left, you're going to live, breathe, die here. That's great. I love me some rural towns. But there is a culture in rural towns that presents issues. And part of it is we sometimes want to turn our head and not have courageous conversations. And I know that's not your area, but I don't know if there's any cafeteria managers up in here. Are there any cafeteria managers? Okay, there you go, girl. Okay. Don't be letting you, with your crew, have anybody up there that won't show their teeth. You hear me? Are you nice? Forget about her. Is she nice or is she lying? See what? Yeah, that's your job. I'm going to be checking on you. Where do you work? What school? Elementary. So you got the little babies. Okay. And you got women up in your organization? They all flash their pearlies? Okay? I'm going to come up and check on y'all. I'm going to sneak in and do a secret shopper kind of a thing. They think I'm lying. I am. First of all, I like going to the elementary school cafeterias because, look, all the little cheerings are in there. And they're adorable. Let me tell you, I was at the high school. They're not so adorable at that age. Okay? Trust me. They ain't. I was getting done with a PD somewhere in this elementary school, and I grabbed my compadre and I said, "Hey, let's go in the cafeteria." And he's like, "Why?" And I said, "Because they're in there. I just want to look at them." I don't know how people that work at elementary schools can be cranky. I don't. They're precious little babies. So I'm going to be following up with you. Yeah, you remember. Okay. All right. Look at these happy women. Okay, in the cafeteria. Look at this support staff. Where are my SROs? Seriously, where are my SROs? Okay. You see this picture up in the left-hand corner? You want me to tell you how long it took for me to get on the Google and find a cop that was smiling? It's about war me, slap out. The longer I researched, the madder I got, and the more I just wanted to come and just smack somebody upside the back of y'all stick knuckleheads. We got to have y'all get rid of your street persona, walk up in that school, and flash the pearlies. Let go of the tough guy and just let it rip with these kids. Let it rip. I'm telling you, if I could have my SROs get up there and say, "You were going to be world-class dopamine dispensers." You've got kids that'll come and talk to you that won't talk to another soul on that campus if they feel like you're safe to approach and your body language is open and you're out there interacting with kids and you're popping them and you're high-fiving and you're saying good morning and everything you're doing is just saying, you know what, I'm here for you, man. Yeah, I got the gun. Yeah, I got the badge. Yeah, I'm the one in control. They know that already. So bring something else. Bring flashing the pearlies. Let them know that you're safe to approach, because when they know that you're safe to approach, they're going to talk to you and you're going to learn more about your school and about them, and you're going to be such a more valued asset because they're able to come to you. And I have so many SROs that have trouble just moving from that to this. And so that's my charge for you. And I have got size 11s and I will come and use them. Capisci? Wearing me out. One dang picture of a cop smiling. Are you kidding? Look, here's what the poverty research says. Y'all got some poverty up in this district? Here's what the poverty research says. They asked a body of, in the group in this research, they wanted to know, how did you navigate out of poverty and get into the middle and the upper class? And they were talking to these people in this body of research. 90% of those people said, I had one, at least one, some of them only had one, pivotal adult that helped me navigate out of the concrete of my life into the middle and the upper class. One. So when we're talking about you walking on that campus every single day with the mindset and the intention that says, I'm going to put my leadership footprint on this organization that I'm proud of every day. I'm going to make sure that I navigate throughout my day, handle the stress, handle all the craziness, but I've got my focus on the cheerings. And I'm going to make sure that I put myself in the position that maybe I am the one for that particular damaged pedal. Y'all remember The Blind Side? Y'all remember that movie, The Blind Side? She and her husband and the family are in their SUV going home in that frigid Memphis night. And she sees a child walking on the side of the road in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts. And instead of her being so engrossed in her dang cell phone, she realizes what she's seeing, and she knows that there's something really wrong about this. And she told her husband to do what? Turn around. Turn around and stop. And that decision right there for her to be willing to possibly be the one for that child at that moment in time changed the trajectory and the family tree of that child forever. Her decision to say, I'm willing to be the one right now in this child's life. I don't know where it's going to lead, but that child cannot be out on this frigid Memphis night in a pair of shorts and t-shirt. Something is not right here. And she told her husband to turn around. And they have asked her, well, Leanne, we can't all take a kid into our home and adopt them and raise them as our own. What do you suggest? And this is what she says. Anytime she's asked that question, we've got to be willing to look to our left, to look to our right, to get out of our comfort zone, to do something that might not be on our schedule that day. We've got to be willing to say, you know what? If I reach out to a child and I actually connect, that love and that hope that we instill in a child's life can often be what they need to be the water at that moment in time to help them continue fighting out of the concrete of their life. Are you willing to look to your left and to look to your right? Are you willing to make sure when you step on that campus, you understand, I'm just going to reach out and just pour it out. And if I'm the one that's supposed to connect with that child that day or for the rest of their life, I'm good with that. Because if we have an entire district of awesome rock star support staff that have that mentality going in, you're going to touch lives with these kids that desperately need love than what they're getting. I love this sign. This was in the office of the school. Our commitment is that everyone that enters this building, this office, has a higher opinion after they leave than before they come. I talked to all the managers of the cafeterias in 3 different parts of the state earlier in the year. And I said, why don't we put a sign like that in all our cafeterias? Why not? Because what that's saying is, you know what? This entire staff is committed to making sure that you're going to feel better about your experience coming into our cafeteria, coming onto my bus, coming into the SRO office. Whatever it is, we've got to set that intention that says to them who we're serving, you're the most important thing. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you feel better because of experience. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about pouring on the emotional deposits. Your kid's bank account emotionally is in the red, is it not? Think about it. Every single person in here said, I'm going to at least contribute to their bank account. I'm going to contribute to their emotional bank account today. How do you do that? Smile, be happy, be open, have great body language, flash the pearlies, ask them how they're doing, say good morning. If I can do anything for you, let me know. Emotional deposit, emotional deposit. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Does what I say matter to you? That's what your kids are wanting to know. I have teachers that love their content. They're in love with their content. How many of y'all have been in classes of teachers that are in love with their content? Come on. I have taught with teachers that are in love with their content but white knuckle it and hate the fact they have to teach kids. Okay? I have teachers, I want to say to them, you did know there were kids in this profession, right? Was that a surprise to you the first day of your first year that you taught? Really? I had a teacher I was working with, and I said, and she said to me, she was really a stoic woman, very stern, and I said, do you enjoy what you're doing? And she said, well, I love my job, and I love my kids. And I said to her, tell your face. Kids in poverty read body language. Kids in poverty have to do great at reading the nonverbal communication around them. That's how they survive. And so I want y'all thinking about how do I look? How do I show up? How do I appear? What is it that they're seeing? Because here's the deal. You're the chief emotional officers. You get to set the weather and the tone. And for a lot of adults, they don't think about what I look like. Look, I was walking down the hallway one day, and I was all in my head. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on, so I was missing moments of truth. I was missing opportunities to sling dopamine. And I was thinking about that long list of things I had to do, and one of my own students stopped me, and they said, Miss B, what's wrong? And I said, excuse me? And they said, what's wrong? And I said, nothing. Why? And he said, oh, you look really mad. And I said, I do? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, thank you for telling me that. And I walked back to my room, and you know what I was thinking? I've never thought about what I look like when I'm not thinking about what I look like. And then I started thinking about it. It ain't pretty. Okay? I got little beady eyes, my mouth turns down, I got a teacher stare, a coach's stare, I'm big. I could be really intimidating. I don't want my kids to not know that they can come to me or that I'm scary to them. I don't want them to think I'm not approachable. I certainly don't want them to think I don't like my job or I don't like them. And so one of the things I'm going to ask you is, how did you do setting the tone and being a great chief emotional officer? Because people feed off of each other's energy. And so if you come into an organization and you got energy like you're about to step into the grave, that's a problem. Here's the deal. I'm going to ask you this. Would you agree that you can say what you want about how you think you are, but people are going to believe what they experience? What do they experience when they're around you? What do they experience when they're around you? How do they feel when they're around you? Are they uplifted? Do they feel better because they interacted with you? Are you a Debbie Downer? Do you need a checkup from the neck up? I don't know. We're in the house of the Lord. Y'all can figure it out and be honest. I don't want the lightning bolt coming down and getting anybody else, so just be truthing with yourself. Let me ask you this. On an enthusiasm scale from 1 to 10, think about last year. On an enthusiasm scale from 1 to 10, 1, you need CPR. 10, you need a Valium. Where did you rank on that scale every day, bringing the enthusiasm up into that organization? Because you need to decide, what is my cutoff point? If I get below this number. Now, some of y'all, if you're sitting there going, what does that mean, enthusiasm? Then if you're not even registering on the scale, okay, you got 3 days to fix it. well, I'm just not a really outgoing person. It's not about you. It's not about you. I challenge teachers and administrators all the time. It's like your personality at work can be totally different than your personality in your own personal life. I am a personal introvert. In my personal life, I am a more introverted person. I don't like to be around a lot of people. It sucks the energy out of me. I need to be able to isolate and recharge. I am more of an introvert in my personal life. I cannot possibly bring that personality into a classroom and be effective. And I certainly don't want to bring that personality into an organization and have it not be uplifting. That's not going to be able, if I'm just isolating and reserved and more to myself, that's not going to help anybody that I'm around. So we've got to make the decision. We all wear different hats. Are you taking off the hat that serves you in your personal life and putting on the hat that's going to serve the kids and your organization the best in your professional life? Because that can be two totally different things. How many of y'all can relate to what I just said about having different feelings when you're personal and professional? Yeah, I got some head shakes. A lot of us are like that. The problem is a lot of people never take off that hat and put on the one that's going to serve the organization and serve the kids. And so that's one of the things I'm going to ask you. I'm going to challenge you with that, to realize that how you show up and what you bring energy-wise is going to have a ripple effect on everybody. That's a pretty powerful slide right there. 55%. That's why I'm always dogging on SROs. I understand street persona. I understand the need to have a whole different vibe when you're out patrolling. I get it. I have a ton of friends that are cops. But one of my best buds is an SRO at a high at-risk school in another county in Tennessee, and she may be 110 pounds soaking wet. But what she is, she's a great connector. What she understands is slinging dopamine. And there's not a kid on that campus that let anything happen to her, and there's not a kid on that campus that doesn't respect who she is, even though she's this tall and 110 pounds soaking wet, because she makes the connection. She is continually putting emotional deposits in kids' bank accounts. She's continually allowing herself to be open and connect with kids on a different level. And so that's what it is, and we're talking about the science and the neuroscience of how we get people to act differently. We've got to show up different. I'm going to ask you, if you have an opportunity to put up a tripod in the back of your room or the back of your cafeteria or the back of somewhere to where you can kind of record people doing their thing, I would encourage you to do it. If you're an educational assistant, you have a great opportunity to set up a tripod with a camera, put it on yourself, press record, and just see how it is. And here's the deal. Here's what I want you to do. Take it home, okay? Take it. Where are my educational assistants? I know I talked to a group of you there. Okay, good. See, y'all are perfect. See, y'all can do this. Y'all ready? Okay, so when you film yourself, all right, you set it up, just press record, forget it's there, do your thing, okay? Take it home, get it set up. Don't press play yet, all right? Go and pull down all the shades in your house, okay? Because you don't want nobody else to see what you're about to witness, okay? Then go to your kitchen and get a stiff drink, all right? I always recommend to make it a double, okay? You'll be glad you did. And then when you get done, if you want to get me on speed dial, we can talk it through, because you're going to be out on the ledge by the time you realize what you're doing to those poor children. When you press play and you watch yourself, you're going to be shocked, appalled, horrified at some of the things that you do. I had a kid that I was coaching. He was a young pup on the porch. He hadn't been in the classroom 2 minutes. I said, film yourself. Just film yourself. He had very low energy. And so he did. And he called me. He's like, OMG, OMG, OMG. I said, yeah, I know. I said, do tell. And he said, Tara, I had to turn it off after about 3 minutes. He said, my energy was horrible. My intonation was flat. We just aren't aware sometimes of how we show up. So when we're talking about connecting with kids, we got to remember it's the emotions. It's the emotions that matter. Here's the crazy thing. Maslow's been saying it for a long time. I want you to look at tier 1 and 2. That's where our cafeteria workers are. That's where our SROs are. Physiological needs, safety needs. We feed them. We keep them safe. We don't let them walk around no shoes. We got the nurses and the free health screening and all that. Tier 1 and 2, we tear it up. in education. I don't know what happens with our crazy leaders because they want us to skip over tier 3 and 4 and get on up to 5. Okay, 5 is, thirst for knowledge, want to know, academics, blah, blah, blah. Look what's on 2, 3, and 4. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Does what I say matter to you? Do you believe in me? Do you love me? Will you be there for me? That's tier 3 and 4. I don't care if I was in rural. I don't care if I was in California or at that big old honking school outside of Nashville. What I knew was that if I tore up tier 3 and 4, magic was going to happen with those kids. When I tore up tier 3 and 4, I could have the bar this high, which I did. I could have the bar that high, and my kids would die to try to get to that bar because I had tapped into the emotion. I had earned the right to get into their head by way of their heart. This 18 inches right here, we got teachers and administrators that feel like, I have the red pen, I have the big desk, I have the big degrees, you should just let me in your head. And what I know is, you've got to earn your way for getting a kid to open their mind by way of their heart. And let me tell you this, when we talk about the different levels, how did you do interacting? Because Maslow says it's not just about connecting, but it's how you connect. And do you know any teachers or administrators that can't get past word 1 of number 1? Have you seen teachers that don't talk to their kids? We've got to make sure that we're overriding anything that's out there by you determining. And I tell you what, this number 2 nickname, how many of y'all had a nickname that y'all loved as a kid? How many of y'all had a nickname that was just made you feel special and you liked it? So a few of you did. I tell you what, 6th grade, I'm walking down the hallway, and Mr. Denard came toward me. Mr. Denard was the principal, and he was a great dopamine dispenser. He was always flashing the pearlies, always a really friendly guy. And I don't know why he did it this one particular day, but he's coming toward me, and he'd never done it before. But he said, "Hey, Slim Brown, how's it going?" And I thought, Slim Brown? He just called me Slim Brown. He don't call anybody in this whole school Slim Brown but me. I will never forget how that made me feel. And so it was weird because he never called me Tara again. He always called me Slim Brown. And so when I went to the high school, I'm playing ball. He comes up, "Oh, good game, Slim Brown," or "We'll get him next time, Slim Brown." I go to college. I come back on Christmas break. I bump into him in the pharmacy or the bakery, and, "Hey, Slim Brown." Every time he called me Slim Brown, whether I was 13 or 35, I always felt like, Stop it. That's how I felt. Because it was his with me and only me. That was our thing. Here's the crazy thing. In early 2000, I had the girls' center in my class. I wasn't coaching at the time, but I had Jessica for 2 years. And one day she walked in, and to this day, I don't know where it came from or why I did it, but she walked in and I said, "Hey, Biggin, how's it going?" I don't know why I called her Biggin. I don't know where it came from. It was nothing that I thought about, but I called her Biggin for the rest of the 2 years that I had her. She graduated in 2004. Last March of 2016, she reached out to me on Facebook in a private message, and I was so excited to hear from her, and I wrote her back, and it's like, "Tell me what's going on. I'm so great to hear from you, blah, blah, blah." And she wrote back this long private letter, and at the bottom of it, she signed it, "You're Biggin." She's a grown woman out in the world, and she signed it, "You're Biggin." And I sat there, and it was like it had just hit me between the eyes. I had me a big fat fall apart. I talk about this stuff all the time. But what that said to me is we don't know the power or the space of which those emotional deposits are going to travel in a child's life. We don't know where that ripple effect's going to be. We've just got to be willing to be that person that says, "You know what? I'm just going to do all I can." And look, as one of my redneck boys said one day, I think he thought the work was pretty easy because he looked up and he's like, "You know, Miss B, this ain't rocket surgery." And I said, "No, darling, it's not." And I swear I want to go to some of my educational leaders, I want to go to some of my teachers, and I want to grab them by the lapel, and I want to shake the snot out of them, and I want to say, hey, this ain't rocket surgery. We got the love and the cheerings. And I want to go to some of my cranky front desk secretaries and some of my cranky cafeteria workers and say, hey, how about when you sling some green beans on that platter, you sling some dopamine? Because this ain't rocket surgery. We got to hit them from every angle. Every chance we get, we got to be slinging dopamine. I want y'all to remember this until you get out of education. Emotions are the fast lane of the brain. You want to change somebody's behavior, hit them with emotions. Put more emotional deposits. You got kids that are driving you crazy, guess what? They need more emotional deposits. Instead of bringing the hammer down on them, love them up. Keep the emotional deposits coming, because there's going to be a day where they're going to be convinced that they can trust you. They're going to be convinced that you're not going to leave them. They're going to be convinced that maybe you're going to stay in their life. And once you got that, you got them. Let me ask you this. From the time you had a job until now, would you agree that when you personally, from your boss, your organization, when you felt valued and appreciated, respected, and included in the process, did these three things in red go up for you? From the time you were little all the way till now. Y'all agree that that's true for most of us? We can all agree. Yes, it makes a huge difference. The thing is, we forget that kids are just little us's. They want the same exact thing, and they respond the same exact way. Here's the crazy thing. It's the same thing for cows. Wait, what she said? I dozed off. It's the same thing for cows. They did a study in England, and they wanted to know if cows cared about being included in the process, if they would make any difference at all if cows were loved on. And so for 10 months, they separated them. In one group, they just hooked them up and milked them. In the other group, they named them, they talked to them, loved on them, sang to them, petted them, thanked them for the milk, asked them how their little cheerings were, whatever else you say to cows, I don't know. But they did it. What you reckon happened to the milk production of those cows that got loved on and were part of the process? Now, I had a woman in the back row one time scream out, they gave chocolate milk! Woo! I said, well, I hate to disappoint, it wasn't that miraculous, okay? Maybe if they'd have done it 12 months, it would have, I don't know. Look, y'all are from rural. Y'all have cows. Y'all know people that work with cows. Y'all know the milk production went up. Do you not? Here's the crazy thing. I'm going to ask you, do your kids look that happy? That's a cow that knows that it's been included in a part of the process. Do you look this happy every single day? SROs, do you look that happy? It's legal for you to smile. Look, if we need to use that as a barometer, if you need to take that picture and just hold it up to kids and go, nope, not quite, not quite. Cafeteria manager, if you want one of those big old posters in your office, you can bring your people in one at a time. Just stand right beside that poster. Let me look. Not quite, not quite. Hey, whatever we have to do, because it's not about us, it's about the kids. And we got to bring it every day. We got to make sure we're trying to make our kids look that happy by how we interact with them, how we love on them. Here's the crazy thing. I was talking to a big old group, and I came off stage, and there was a very quiet man standing down at the bottom of the steps. He wanted to talk to me. I had to lean in because he was so quiet and shy. Found out he was an assistant principal. He was a good old boy, assistant principal. And he said, you know that thing about them cows? And I said, yes, sir. He said, you're spot on. And I said, do tell. And he said, I was raised on a dairy farm. And he said, my daddy always told us, you got to be nice to them cows. Cows don't like to be yelled at. And he said, they'd rather be hit with that cattle prod than they would to be yelled at. It scares them, it messes them. They don't like it at all. He had to fire a couple cow hands because they were just too loud, too mean. And he said, I used to go out to the stall sometime, and he said, I'd hear my daddy just talking to him. Sometimes he'd be singing to him, and my daddy couldn't sing. He said, but the cows didn't care. They liked it a lot. And he said, you know what happens when you got a cow and he's all upset and he got that cortisol running through him? And I said, no, sir. He said, you go to hook up them udders, and those udders, they just lock up. I said, really? He said, that's right. He said, you love on them cows, and you got that dopamine and that endorphins going, and it calms them down. He said, you hook up them udders. He said, that milk just flows. And he said, my daddy used to tell us, you don't take milk from cows. They give it to you. And he said, I was sitting out there when you were talking, and you know what I concluded? I said, no, sir. He said, kids and cows, they ain't much different. And I said, sir, you are spot on. And I want y'all to go into the school year thinking about the fact that kids and cows, they ain't much different. Because when we get a child in a space to where they feel emotionally safe and they feel connected to the organization, that's when they're going to give you their effort. That's when they're going to give you their motivation. That's when they're going to give you their academic progress. But it's when we spend the time on the front end to be able to have those connections. When we think about what people follow and how they are led, it's by people who they buy into the leader first. And that's why I say it doesn't matter what your title is. You're a leader on that campus. They're looking up to you. They're looking up to you. So you are a leader. So what is it that you're bringing to allow for that child to buy into you first and believe that you're worth following? Here's the thing I want y'all to remember forever. Dopamine overrides the cortisol levels, and when your kids leave and they're running from lions out in their regular life, they've got cortisol, and cortisol stops the ability for our brain to function. So if a child never has the cortisol level come down, they'll go into a classroom and they can't think, and they can't compute, and they can't take in information. How many of y'all have been going somewhere and you're going to an important meeting and you're lost and you're stressed and somebody's in the front seat yapping? What do you say? Shut up! Okay? The reason you do that is because your brain is flooded with cortisol and you can't take in any more information. Well, imagine a child who leaves the safety of a school, goes out into their life like they're doing across the district, and they're running from the lions of their life. And they're having all kind of things happen to them at night. And they're coming back into our school system. Until we get them to have that cortisol level come down, they can't take in information. They can't process. That's when I show you that picture of that custodian spending time with those two little precious babies. He's helping the teacher. He's helping to get those minds in a place where they can take in information because the cortisol level's down and the dopamine is up. Dopamine helps with attention. It helps with focus. Y'all be honest, how many kids have y'all seen up in the school that need some increased attention and focus? Okay. Y'all see them everywhere. Our kids are overly stimulated, so we've got to help them figure out a way to calm down. Dopamine is a beautiful thing. I want y'all thinking about this when y'all go into the school year from now until forever. I'm going to be a world-class dopamine dispenser. I'm going to sling dopamine everywhere I get a chance. Regardless of what I do on campus, I'm going to make sure I'm slinging dopamine. I want you to look at this right here. How would you like for your own children to get on Maureen's bus? Where are my bus drivers? Where are my bus drivers? Where's my bus driver manager? Who's the manager? Where are you? Where are you? Right there. So you're over all these people. Do they all look as happy as Maureen? Sister, you got 72 hours to fix it. Because I was just deafened by silence. You look like a deer caught in headlights right there. I saw the thought bubble, OMG, OMG, OMG. No, they do not. Look, bus drivers, y'all got to bring it. They love Maureen so much, they shine her wheels at the bus depot, okay? Because she's a world-class dopamine dispenser. She's slinging dopamine all over that district. But here's the thing. You got kids running from lions, they step on Maureen's bus, and all of a sudden, she's already started the process of the cortisol level coming down. She is already contributing to how that child's brain is going to function because she's flashing the pearlies. So we cannot that's a moment of truth right there. That is a moment of truth that Maureen is crushing because she understands how her influence and her interaction impacts those kids. Let me show you this this email I got. It says, hey Tara, we've been slinging a lot of dopamine at Sequatchie County Middle School in Dunlap, Tennessee. We started a student voice board with weekly questions that students can answer. We have started playing music in the hallways every morning that students choose through the student voice board. So you got a group of teachers who said, you know what? When they come down our hallway, we're going to make it feel good up in here. We're also going to ask our customers what they like to listen to. And we're going to put together playlists with songs that they like so that when they come down our hallway, we're going to have dopamine slinging. So by the time their booty sits in the desk with the tardy bell ringing, their brain is going to be in a much better place and they're going to be ready to get down and get after it because we're contributing to it because we're asking them what you like. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Does what I say matter to you? Do you care about what we think? Yes, we do. We're asking questions and we're listening. We're having music up in here. We're acting human. We're flashing the pearlies. We're having a good time. Oh, there's no laughter in education. There should be. But I've been in schools where it's kind of scarce. Anyone up in here been in a little scarcity of dopamine in your own work? We've got to bring it. I want to show you this world-class dopamine dispenser. I want y'all to figure out who y'all can get out in front of the school to do this.
Brake lights, orange cones, and traffic jams. 3 workday problems promoting frustration. And that's the norm for many parents as they drop their kids off at schools around Central Arkansas. But with a daily song, and an occasional jig.
He is just a larger-than-life character.
Oh, no.
Brake lights,
I am so sorry. I shouldn't touch things when it's playing. I'm sorry.
And that's the norm for many parents as they drop their
I'll
kids
just stand
off
over
at
here and be
schools around
quiet.
Central Arkansas. But with a daily song, and an occasional jig.
He is just a larger-than-life character.
An assistant principal at Woodrow Elementary in Conway is hoping to change frustration into elation.
They had a rough morning, they didn't want to eat their breakfast, so we try to make them smile and laugh.
And if a student's studying the welcome raises an indication, this morning musical drop-off is working.
Kids have fallen in love with the idea, they love that whipping nay-nay, and they want to play it every day, and they want to dance every day.
Just lifts everybody's spirit. This is like a great start to our day.
I think the parents just so appreciate the family feel.
And so each and every school day morning, Mr. Logan will continue his tunes.
It makes their day, and it makes mine to see them smiling and happy, and they want to give out hugs in the morning, they want to high-five in the morning.
Because after all, when you see a dancing and singing assistant principal, there's really only one option. Smile.
I don't do bad days. Every day's a good day.
That's some good stuff right there. That's some good stuff right there. We got some serious people. We got to loosen up. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do is, how'd you do laughing? Good grief. Look at the animals. They know how to laugh. How y'all doing laughing? Y'all got to bring it. They're not afraid to flash the pearlies. Look at there. We got to follow their lead because we got some happy animals out there and some really cranky people dealing with kids. How are you going to do this year going, you know what? Yeah, I had way too much furrowed brow. I got my mouth turned down all the No, you got to bring it. Laughter is one of the greatest ways you can connect with your kids. It's the greatest way. When I went over and I was going to Dubai, I had a liaison that was organizing all the speakers to go over there, and there were 17 speakers. They were flying in from all over creation. And I kept talking to Serene, and it'd be like, Serene, are they going to understand what I'm saying? Are they going to understand my humor? She said, oh, don't worry, she kept telling me. And as it got closer to it, because this was the Middle East, this was only the second educational conference in the entire Middle East. There were women in full burqas. It was going to be intense energy. And I kept saying, you know, are they going to? And finally she got really irritated with me. She was Middle Eastern. She had a very strong accent. And she says, Tada! She called me Tada. She said, Tada! Just do what you do. I said, really? She said, just do what you do. I said, okay. So I flew over to Dubai, and I did what I did, and I used humor, and I joked around, and what I found out is people over there, whether they were sitting in full burgers or not, had principles that bugged them too. And they had kids that they wanted to choke too, just like we do. And so it didn't matter what region of the world it was, because humor is universal. And so if you're looking back on last year going, wow, did I laugh very much? And the answer is no, you get to do it different this year. You get to do it different. If you think about, did I laugh with my colleagues? And your answer is not a whole lot. You get to fix it. Because that's what we're talking about. Every day we get to do it different. Every year we get to reflect and we got to go, what did I crush? What did I do great? And what can I do different? What can I do better to help the organization, to uplift my colleagues, and to love on the children? That's what we're talking about. I used humor a lot in my classes. I had my kids all in groups one day, and we were studying Lewis and Clark. And I'm up at my desk like I'm not listening, and I'm hearing everything. And the group in the back started talking about the mall. And I said, group in the back, how did Lewis and Clark get off the trail, and why are they at the mall? And I hear back from them, oh, they had to go. Well, now I have to know why Lewis and Clark needed to go to the mall. So I said, why did they need to go to the mall? And I hear back from one of my kids, they had to get a baby shower gift for Sacagawea. That is hilarious. Unless you tell that joke in Canada. They don't know anything about Lewis and Clark or Sacagawea. That happened about 2 months ago. I shared that story, and I had blank faces across the whole entire auditorium. And I'm like, Lewis and Clark, oh, I'm in Canada. You don't know about American history. Got it. Look, that's funny stuff. And I said to them, did they find the right gift? And they said, I said, can we get them back on the trail? They're like, yeah, we're there. I didn't want stress. And I used humor a lot to help my stress and to connect with them on a different level. Another thing I'm going to ask you is you make sure that you hold your kids accountable. I know, as well as I know my name, that some of y'all have had conversations with kids where you're the one that's getting them back in line. Am I truthing? Y'all have been able to talk to kids in a way that other people can't. I know that there was one school that had a program for highly troubled kids, often very explosive. And this teacher told me one time she had one of her kids lose his head, and he just was freaking. And she said he ended up throwing a couple desks, and he ended up on top of one of the tables, just in an absolute fit of rage. And she said, unbeknownst to me, one of the sweet little janitors, custodians, was wheeling her cart down the hallway, and my door was open. And the next thing I know, I hear, Jason, what in the world are you doing? And she said, I looked over there, and the custodian is walking in the door with her hands on her hips, talking to that boy who's in a fit of rage. And the minute he saw her, everything switched. And she said, I could not believe it. She said, I had absolutely no idea he knew her, let alone they had the kind of relationship that she could have that level of influence on that child just like that, and I couldn't reach him at all. So when we're talking about the conversations that y'all have, that's one of the things I want when y'all have those conversations that only some of y'all can have with those kids, is to hold them accountable for their behavior, to hold that bar of excellence here, to continue to say to them that you believe in them, that you know that they can. You've got kids in this district who are dying to go to college or to have a profession that their parents they've never seen modeled. You've got kids in this district who've never had anybody in their family get a high school diploma, don't you? Some of those kids are dying to go experience world beyond Lenoir County. And it's through conversations with caring adults that you're able to continue to water that dream and water that hope of doing something different than what they've ever seen modeled in the homes. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my journey with kids in urban Long Beach. And I was hired in Long Beach after this particular school had been on the national news. This particular school is a middle school that backed up to the Carmelitos housing project, which is a very violent housing project in Long Beach, and it had rival gangs that lived in the complex. So there was often shooting that erupted. And when I was hired, I had not seen these because this had happened 2 years prior. But what would happen is oftentimes that gunfire, stray bullets would fly out onto the PE field and the basketball courts because it backed right up to the boundary of that neighborhood. And this one particular year, a stray bullet hit a child that was on the PE field. And finally, the community and the school and the police got together, and they decided to build a wall that was about 12 feet high that ran the entire back of the school to help protect the kids from the violence. And you can see that long wall, and you can see the roofs of the housing project. So you can see how close the housing project was to the property line of Lindbergh Middle School. And I went back about 3 years ago, and that's my trailer right there in the right-hand corner. And so you can see I butted up right to that property line. And that's a picture of me. You see how tall the wall was, and it ran the entire back. So you can see it running behind the basketball courts where kids used to play and the stray bullets used to fly. And I got hired on a Thursday, and the woman that hired me was an expert in gangs, and she had written a book on the gang sets in Long Beach, and she gave me one of those books on Thursday, and I was going to start on Monday. And she slid that book across the desk, and she said, "You need to read that book by Monday. It might just save your life." And I realized that I was stepping into a world that I did not know with different customers. And it was my job to figure out who my customers were. And so I used to take that book on the seat of my car, and I would drive around Long Beach, and I would go and see different places where the different gang sets had communicated and written stuff. And I would look at her book because she had all the gang sets and all the writing broken down, and I would read it, and I would try to figure out who's mad at who wrote what, was this a gang, was it a blood, was it a crip, what set with it, what location in town, because I knew that anything that happened in town was going to come into the school. It's the same thing here, right? Something happens, there's a dust up somewhere in your community, doesn't it kind of follow them into school? Same thing here. So I had to figure out who my customers were. And it was all about them and nothing to do with me. I just didn't know anything about them. And I had seen, when I was interviewing for the job and I was on campus, I'd seen girls, gang bangers, that had hair that was like way here, way up, high hair. And I got there Monday, and there was a whole table of them. And they were sitting there staring at me. And they're looking at me like I'm from another planet. There was no other white woman 6 foot tall with a southern accent that takes 3 syllables to get out a 1 syllable word walking around that campus. Here I was. And they're looking at me like I'm from another planet. And I open my mouth, and they're convinced that I am. And so now I realize I've got this huge chasm between us, and what am I going to do to bridge that gap? Because until I touch them in the emotional side, I can't get their head. I got to earn my way into their head. And this group of girls stared at me and glared at me, and if I could have read the thought bubbles, they were probably saying, woman, and it probably wasn't the term they were using, woman, you can drop dead and I'll step over your corpse. That's probably what they were thinking, because they were not wanting me in their space. And I tried all kind of tools and tricks to connect with them, and I finally one day was sitting there and I thought, I got to find out about this hair. And I grabbed me a chair, and I started heading over to that table. And the closer I got, the more they glared at me. And I thought, you know what? I'm either going to die or I'm going to find out about this hair. And I plopped my butt down, and I gave them my biggest, goofiest, Gomer Pyle golly attitude. And I said, so, okay, this hair, this. Never seen anything like it in my life. Break it down for me. I want you to start from my hair is wet to this. Don't leave out a thing. And I just looked at them. And I think they were thinking, if we don't say anything, maybe she'll just go away. But I wasn't going away. And so finally this one girl looks at me, and she starts talking about hair gel. And so I zeroed in on her because she was talking. And I'm looking at her, and I'm nodding. And this girl over here cuts her off. She says, don't listen to her. I said, is that wrong hair gel? She goes, she don't know what she's talking about. That's not the right kind. So she starts correcting her on the hair gel, tells me another brand to use. I found out all about the hair. You know that button on the dryer that shoots out cold air? I never knew what that was for. It's for that. If you want your hair to look like that, it's a very integral part of the process. That cold air has to come at the right time. I found out about it all. I found out where half the pollution in LA County was coming from. It's the aerosol, baby. It's the aerosol. You got to load it up with the aerosol. There ain't a Santa Ana wind, a hurricane, or earthquake's going to move a hair on their head once they got it in place. Got the aerosol. Took me about 7 minutes to have that conversation with those girls. And what it was no teacher, no student. It was just talking about hair. I don't care that you had to sleep with 7 boys to get jumped into the gang. I don't care that you've had 3 abortions. I don't care that you've served time in jail. Doesn't matter. None of that's relevant to me. It's just us girls talking about hair. I wanted to send the message that I see you. I don't judge you. It's just us talking about hair. 7 minutes. Guess what happened? I'd earned my way into their heads by me just saying, teach me something. Teach me something. I don't know anything about this. This is cool. Teach me. So we've got to figure out, are there ways that I can connect with a child by bringing it in the side door or the back door? So when we're talking about connecting with kids, I want y'all to remember that there are some kids that are just waiting for an adult to show their desire to connect with them. They're standing off, not wanting to connect. And there are kids that are dying to see if there's an adult that wants to connect with them. So what do I do with the guys? They don't want to talk about the hair. I have a room full of gang-banging boys, middle school age. I'm the boys' coach at the time. I'm coaching the boys' basketball team at Lindbergh Middle School, so I have basketballs with me all the time. I played ball my whole entire life. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, so that meant I was usually the only female on a court with a gym full of boys. And I learned some things about guys growing up playing all those hours. One thing is, you put a ball in a room with a bunch of guys, somebody's going to pick it up. I knew that. Is that true? Second thing I knew is teenage boys, even if they have never played a sport, cannot fathom in their mind that you as a female could possibly be better than them. Is that true? So that was my bait right there. And I thought, I got to connect with my boys, and I don't know how to do it. So I brought in a couple of balls, and I laid them on the floor. I felt like I was fishing with the lure right out there. And I put a couple balls on the floor behind my desk, and I thought, one of these days, one of these gang-banging hardcore boys are going to come in and pick up that ball, because that's what guys do. And sure enough, one of them did. So that was my first piece of bait. I had the lure on the water. And I said, oh, you play ball? I said. Then I thought to myself, what's he going to say? No, because he's got his friends right there. The girls are sitting over there at the table listening. He's not going to say no. Yeah, I play some ball. I said, oh, okay. I said, you any good? Again, what's he going to say? No. Yeah, I can ball. Okay, all right. I said, what are you good at? Well, I don't have a hoop in there, so he can't show me he can shoot or not. And so I finally said to him, I said, I don't know, can you spin it at all? He's not going to say no. And so I tossed him the ball. Or he already had it, and I said, well, show me. And I watched him have that ball run him all over that room looking silly. He was trying his darndest to keep that ball up on that finger and impress his friends and the girls in the class. And he finally wore himself out, and I was leaning back looking at him, and I said, I thought you said you could spin it. And I was waiting for the words to come down from the heavens. And he said, what? You can do better? And it was like, thank you, God, thank you. He answers prayers, yes. And I said, yeah. And his friends are like, uh-oh. And the girls are all tuned in now. So he tosses me the ball. And I said, what you want me to do? Spin it. I said, what hand? And his friends are like, oh, I don't care, right. I said, okay, which finger? And his friends are like, And so I went ahead and decided that I was going to have to make sure that he knew beyond a doubt that there was at least one woman on the earth that was way, nah, don't clap, that ain't nothing. And so I thought, I got to make sure that I drive home with a few exclamation points. And so I went ahead and got him. We can edit that out, right? And we're going to get this. Woo! And I decided I want to make sure that we're really, really, really clear. And so I grabbed a pen, and I got it going really fast, just the way I wanted it. And I looked at him, and I said, "You want my autograph?" Now, I could not leave his pitiful little ego on the floor. And I had learned enough Spanish that I knew that when you call a Hispanic boy mijo, it's kind of like us saying darling in the South. And so I said, "Mijo, come here." He's like, comes over. I said, "Give me your finger." So I got the ball going really fast, and I took his finger. and I put it right there, and I got it going, and I just stepped back, and this hardcore gangbanger's like this. It was so precious. And I leaned over and I said, "I will teach you how to do that. The girls will dig it." And he's like, "Okay." And all of a sudden, boom, I had him. Because again, it wasn't a teacher and a student. It was just two people that love sports, talking about sports. And so I'm going to encourage you to bring in a part of yourself. I'm going to encourage you to find ways to help your kids see a little bit about you, whether it's putting posters or pictures of you or wherever it is on the wall, whether it's bringing in. I know a woman who loves to knit. She started knitting, and before she knew it, within a year, she had like 16 kids, both boys and girls, who were wanting to learn how to knit. She couldn't believe it. This was in Knox County. Kids want to connect with you, and sometimes the best way you can connect with them is just bring in a little piece of yourself and to find a way to have that be part of the conversation, part of your interaction, part of the way they see you different. You know, if you're over 30, they think you're old, right? They'll know that, right? If you're over 30, they think that you got one foot in the grave. So we got to bring something. So I want to just wrap up real quick. I told you I was coaching the boys' basketball team, and one of the things that I stressed with them forever was that hard work feels good. How many of y'all see kids today and you think they wouldn't know hard work if it slapped them upside the back of the head? I knew that back then when I was in Long Beach. And my boys, I knew if I could get my boys to, number one, wrap their head around the fact that they had a female coach that knew what she was doing, and I could get them to become a family and have ownership for each other, that we could get some things done. And we did. We ended up winning the city championship, and I want to have a little moment for my hair, if I may. Y'all know in the South we call that jack it up for Jesus, or the higher the hair, the closer to God, whichever you prefer. But I was working it. But you can see my boys, not a white one up in there. And we had a great year, and I gave them a ton of emotional deposits, and I held them accountable for each other. And I taught them about hard work because some of those boys lived in the Carmelitos housing project. And I wanted them to believe that there was somebody in that world that believed that they could get out and go do some great things in their life. And I want to just show you a couple of pictures. You see that boy up in the top left? That was Rick. And Rick and I connected on Facebook a few years ago. And that's Rick right there with his little son. And I asked Rick, I said, "Do you ever hear from any of the guys? Do you know what's happening with them?" Or he's like, "Coach, do I hear from any of the guys?" He said, "Coach, we still hang out. Coach, we still celebrate birthdays and other things in our lives." And I want to share with you a part of what he sent me to help us really, really understand the power of our connections with kids and how the ripple effect we don't know. We never left practice until somebody, dog-tired, went up to the free throw line and hit a free throw that hit nothing but net. If it nicked iron, shoot another one. We had to hit a free throw that hit nothing but net. Let me tell you what, sometimes our practices ran long, but that was our thing. And I wanted them to have that level of discipline and commitment to say it's worth us staying here until we get it right. When he sent me this letter, he said, "It was so great to hear from you." He said, "I'm doing well. I live in Long Beach. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach, and I've been a mortgage broker for the last 9 years." He goes on to tell me about the different boys on the team. There's one that's a longshoreman. There's one that's an x-ray tech. There's one that's a sales rep. There's one that's an RN. He starts sharing all of these different careers that these boys have been able to and he says, I can honestly say that without your coaching, none of us would be where we are today. I want to thank you for instilling the importance of hard work in all of us. I still catch Robert and Arvin at the gym, and we still talk about how good we thought we were. He said, but Coach, I want you to know something. He said, we will not leave the gym until one of us hits a free throw that hits nothing but net. On those days where you are so swirling around with all the stuff that's being asked of you, I want you to remember that. I want you to remember the emotional deposits and the ripple effect that is going to have an impact that you have no idea how far it's going to go. But our kids in this county are thirsty. They're thirsty. I want you to be the water that sustains those damaged petals as they fight through the concrete. I want you to commit right now to making sure that whatever needs to change from last year to make it a better year this year, for you to show up a better version of yourself this year than last year, I want you to commit today to say, you know what, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to be a world-class dopamine dispenser. I'm going to be slinging dopamine up on my colleagues. I'm going to be slinging dopamine on those cranky teachers that need to laugh. I'm going to be slinging it on the cheerings. And I want you to commit to say right now that every person's day is going to be better because they interacted with me. And you do that, and you're going to see miracles across this district. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank y'all. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Tara, thank you so much. We're about to take a break. I need to make sure that everybody got word that was being given out in the hall, just to make sure we're all on the same page. If you were not able to sign in, make sure when we take a break that you do. And if you did not get your t-shirt, most definitely make sure that you get your t-shirt. We're going to have a couple buckets just sitting up here in the front for you to put the piece from the flyer on for your door prize. If you haven't filled that out, please do, and make sure we get that, because when we come back from break, we're going to be drawing for door prizes. Before we dismiss for break, I want us to give Tara one more round of applause.